coefficients and constants. As usual, we start out with our definition to solve. We need to find all values of x that make the equation true. Okay, so let's have a look at example 1 that we need to solve. We need to find the value of x that's going to make the equation true. So notice in this case we've got x over 3 plus 2 equals 2/3. And we've got two things over here that are keeping the x from being by itself. We're going to deal with the 2 first. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, well the left side's easy. X divided by 3, and then 2 minus 2 is 0, so I'm going to have x over 3. Notice you can also think about this as a third times x, whatever you're more comfortable with. Both are the same thing. Dividing by 3 and multiplying by a third do the same thing. Okay, now for the more interesting stuff. We've got 2/3 minus 2. Well, let's think about 2 as 2 over 1. So we've got 2/3 minus. And now instead of just writing 2 over 1, let's get a common denominator. So if I multiply top and bottom here by 3, that's going to give me a common denominator. So that's the same as minus 6 over 3. There we go. Okay, so 2/3 minus 6/3 is going to be 4/3. So the left side stays the same. X over 3 equals 4/3. Okay, now we need to do one more thing to get x by itself. Right now we've got x divided by 3, or x times 1/3, however you want to think about it. If I multiply that by 3 over 1, basically multiply it by 3, but write it as 3 over 1, then I've got 3 over 3 times x, which is just 1x. So remember, 3 over 3 is the same as 1 over 1. And of course, I do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so on this side, I've got 1x over 1, which is just x. And on the other side, I can also simplify this early. So I've got 3 over 3 is the same as 1 over 1. So over there, I've got 4 over 1. So I end up with x equals 4. Okay, let's do our check. We're going to write it exactly the same as the original, but instead of x, I'm going to put a 4 in brackets. Oh, that was supposed to be negative 4. I was looking at this. Geez, that's the second video in a row I'm making mistakes. That should have been negative 4 over 3, because 2 over 3 minus 6 over 3 is negative 4. That's going to be negative 4, which means that's going to be negative 4. Okay, that's better. Yeah, because I was looking at it going 2 4/3 is way more than 2/3. Okay, good. So that feels better. Okay, and now when we're doing our checks, we need to just simplify the left side and the right side. So if we're going to simplify the left side, again, I'm going to think about that as 2 over 1. And I'll have negative 4/3. Common denominator, multiply top and bottom by 3. That's going to be 6 over 3 equals 2/3. So I've got negative 4/3 plus 6/3 is going to be 2/3 equals 2/3. Wow, 2 videos in a row. Must be tired or something. Okay, but either way, got that one done. So when x equals negative 4, that's going to make that equation true. So when x equals negative 4, that's our solution. Okay. Next one, B. We've got x plus 5 over 6 equals 3/4 x minus a sixth. Okay. Obviously, we've got x on both sides here, and we want to choose the side that has the greater number of x's to get the x's onto. Well, a whole 1x is greater than 3/4 x, so we're going to subtract 3/4 x from both sides. Okay, if I've got a whole pizza and I take away 3/4 of it, I'd be left with 1/4 of a pizza left. So x minus 3/4 x is going to be 1/4 x plus 5 over 6 equals 3/4 x minus 3/4 x is 0. So we're just left with minus, or negative 1 over 6 over here. Okay, now we want to get this x by itself. The first thing we want to do is deal with this 5 over 6. So I'm going to subtract 5 over 6 from both sides. A quarter x plus 0 is just a quarter x. And I've got negative 1 over 6, and negative 5 over 6 is going to be negative 6 over 6, which is just negative 1. Okay, and now one more step. I want to have x times 1 instead of x times a quarter. So if I multiply this by 4 over 1 times a quarter, that'll make it times 1. So let's multiply this side by 4 as well. I'm not going to bother writing the over 1 over here because it's not a fraction. 4 over 1 and 4 are, of course, the same thing. Okay, and here we've got 4 over 4 is the same as 1 over 1. So I've got 1 times x is just x. And over here I've got negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Okay, let's write it exactly the same as the original, but with a negative 4 instead of the x. Okay, so because we're dealing in fractions here, I'm going to change that negative 4 to a negative 4 over 1. And then I want a common denominator of 6, so I can add those two together. So that's going to be negative 24 over 6 plus 5 over 6 equals, and then on this side, think about that as a 1, as over 1. So that's going to give me, well, negative 4 over negative 4 is the same as negative 1 over 1. So that's going to be negative 3 minus 1 over 6. Getting close. Add these two together is going to give me negative 19 over 6. Think about that as over 1, so we can get a common denominator. So that's going to be, multiply top and bottom there by 6 is going to give me negative 18 over 6 minus 1 over 6. Oh, perfect. Which means I've got negative 19 over 6 equals negative 19 over 6. So when x equals negative 4, that equation is true, so that's our solution. Okay, and just one more example. Got x over 2 plus a third equals 2 over 5. Okay, we want to get the x by itself, so let's subtract a third from both sides. A third minus a third is 0, so on this side we'll just end up with x over 2. Now on this other side, this one's quite a bit of work, 2 over 5 minus 1/3. So I'm just going to do it over here. Notice anytime we're working in this area, everything has to equal the line above. So if we want to figure out what 2 over 5 minus a third is, we can just do it off to the side. So we need to figure out what's 2 over 5 minus a third. Well, we're going to need a common denominator. In this case, it'll be 15. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom here by 3. That'll be 6 over 15. Minus top and bottom here by 5. 5 over 15. It's going to give me, right, equals the line above, equals the line above, 1 over 15. Okay, so that's 1 over 15. Okay, and now I've got x over 2, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over 1. 2 over 2 is the same as 1 over 1, so that's just x over 1, which is x. And top times top, bottom times bottom, that's going to be 2 over 15. Perfect. Okay, let's put this into the original. Well, this is going to be a bit weird. So we've got 2 over 15 over 2. That's a weird fraction. Plus 1/3 equals 2 over 5. Okay, so you remember when we're doing our checks, we need to write it exactly the same as the original to start with. After that, we can kind of play around with it. Over 2 is the same as dividing by 2, so I'm going to rewrite this as divided by 2. got 2 over 15 divided by 2. And then write everything else the same. Okay, well, divided by 2 is the same as divided by 2 over 1. And now, hopefully, you guys remember we can change that to multiplication. So 2 over 15 times 1 over 2 plus a third equals 2 over 5. And here we've got 2 over 2 is the same as 1 over 1. So I'm going to end up with 1 over 15 plus 1 over 3 equals 2 over 5. I need a common denominator on the left. It's going to be 15. So I have 1 over 15 plus multiply top and bottom here by 5. 5 over 15 equals 2 over 5. So that's going to give me 6 over 15 equals 2 over 5. And notice if I reduce this fraction, if I divide top and bottom by 3, I get 2 over 5 equals 2 over 5, which is of course true. So when x equals 2 over 15, this equation is true. So x equals 2 over 15 is the solution. That's all.